Hey there, everybody. It is Jen from empathicmastery.com. And obviously, here, the Empathic Mastery Circle. And wow, what a beautiful day, at least here where I am. And what a powerful, powerful time. Hey, Faye, we are going through. So, first off, I just want to acknowledge that calendar dates are arbitrary, that they are, that like the fact that we've got all of these numbers adding up to something, in some ways it's kind of arbitrary. And depending on what you're looking at and whose calendar it is, it's the 222 portal or it's not. But the thing that's interesting about it is a couple things. One is that collective intention, and when you have a group of people all thinking in a particular way, the vibration of that deeply affects all of us. And the other thing about it is that it just so happens that there is a great deal of very powerful stuff going on astrologically right now. So yesterday, we had what we basically are, the United States experienced its Pluto return from our country's birthday. So the state that, or the exact configuration of Pluto, which I believe was 27 degrees Capricorn on July 4th, 1776, bada bing, bada boom, here we are again. We are back in that place. Now, Pluto is the planet of transformation and change. It is the planet that has a tendency to kind of blow things up, but it also has a way of taking the stuff that is no longer serving us and working for us and melting it down and recycling it and turning it into something new. When we are able to accept that this sort of transformational composting process is a necessary part of life and allowing us to transform ourselves, it's actually a blessing. But when we are resisting it, when we don't want to change, when we don't want to shift, it can be really challenging and really difficult. Talk about, I don't know if you guys can relate, maybe, if that, but I think that in some ways that's kind of the way or where we're at right now as a people, as a species, is that there are some of us who are kind of surrendering to the flow and accepting that we are in the middle of birthing a new world, and some people who are like holding on like cold dead hands for the to keep the old ways of being. So we engaged or entered into the 222 portal actually at the very beginning of February, when we had February sort of starting with February 2nd so it was 0202 2022. And today is obviously 0221 2022. And so what's fascinating is that when you take numbers, if you guys, I don't know if you guys, many, like for anybody, so if, hopefully I'm not going to be, saying the really obvious stuff. But when it comes to numerology, you can see like there's a lot of magic in repeating numbers, like, 222s, 333s, 555s, all of these different, like there's power in repeating numbers. And these tend to amplify the energy of whatever the number is. But when it comes to numerology, what we generally do is we distill down to the basic number. So for example, if you were to look at the number of a year, so this year is 2022. So you would add the 2 plus the, you would add the 2 plus the 2 plus the 2, you get a 6. Now, sixes are a number that's all about, about reciprocity, about integration, about relationship. It correlates with the Lover's card in the tarot deck. But when you are working with a specific day, what you would be doing is you would be adding up all of the numbers. So today is basically 2 plus 2, which is 4, plus 1, which is 5. And then we've got 2, and then we've got the 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. And so 5 plus 6 equals 11, and 11 is 1 plus 1, which equals 2. So today is a 2 day, and 2s represent duality. They represent awareness of other, sort of, you can think about all of these different ways or aspects of sort of like opposites, contrast, duality, black and white, physical versus spiritual, inner versus outer. I'm just trying to think of all of the different things. Good versus evil, male versus female, like all of these ways that we get sort of caught up in these binary perceptions. And what is fascinating about this is that as a species, when our brain is looking at things from a binary, where we're looking at this or that, either or, we have a tendency to get kind of caught and stuck between the two possibilities. If you are familiar with the tarot and you think about the Chariot card, the Chariot is a perfect example of how duality really can stop us and prevent us from moving forward. Because when you have two opposing forces that are both wanting, that have equal power, wanting to move in a particular in opposite directions, what happens is those two forces basically cancel each other out. So in order for us to be able to move from duality and move into unity and move into possibility, we have to break out of this black and white thinking, out of this idea of either or. So today is the opportunity for us to be looking at the duality, because tomorrow, if you add up the numbers, we end up with a 3. Because if you take that, so tomorrow is going to be, I've got my calculator right here. So we've got O2 plus 22 plus 20 plus 22 equals 66. So 66, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 12, and 12 equals 3. Now 3 is the number of possibility. 3 is the number of interrelationship. 3 is, if you think about all of the different aspects of 3, the 3 is the idea of the trinity, of the harmony, of the integration. And so where a 2 is about the separation, the 3 is about the communion and the integration and the bringing together of multiple parts. But it also opens us up to possibility and opens us up to new ways of seeing things. Because back when I was in graduate school, I had this absolutely amazing professor advisor who is now on the other side. And one of the things that he talked about, his name was Jerry Hanspicker. And what Jerry talked about was that basically, as long as we looked at the world from the standpoint of either or, we would be stuck in this binary way of thinking of things, and we would often be at stalemates. But if we could start to imagine or brainstorm for a third possibility, what would happen is it would open up the creativity, and suddenly where we had been feeling absolutely stuck, where we had been feeling absolutely limited, we could, hang on, I've got to, Lilo is like, she wants to sit on my lap, but she refuses to go down. So we're just going to have this conversation with Lilo for the time being. Anyway, so the amazing thing is that when we offer, or when we open up and bring in a third option, What had been a stalemate becomes a possibility, and it allows for a whole new expansive way of being and experiencing the world. So, Lilu, you got fans. Yeah, Vanessa just said hi to you. So, what I've been really thinking about is like in terms of the numerology, when we had the gate opened, sort of the 222 portal opened back on February 2nd, that was when we started to have the idea of the number. Basically, the first version of the number came down to a 10, which distills to a 1, which is unity consciousness, awareness that it's all interconnected, that we're all interconnected, that everything, it's that we are all one. Then today, we are in the 2. And what that's about is looking at the contrast, looking at the duality, and particularly looking at the places within ourselves where there's duality. Tomorrow, as we move into the 3, we open up to the possibility. But the important thing is that we absolutely need to deal with the places where contrast and opposition is causing incongruity and misalignment with ourselves before we can move forward and we can really utilize the energy, the power of this 222 portal, and work with the power and the energy of the amazing power and energy of this Pluto transit that we are going through, and this Pluto return that we are going through as a nation. So what I wanted to do with you guys today was actually work on this idea of the dualities within ourselves. And I've really been thinking a lot about congruity, because when there is full congruity, where all of our parts are invested or are in harmony with each other, then then the roadblocks subside. Then basically we can move, like the flow is there. Whereas when we are out of congruity, when there's like a conflict within ourselves, or the part of us that wants this one thing and a part of us that wants this other thing, then what often happens is, like the Chariot card, which I was going to look for and find, and then I got myself all excited about all these other things and I didn't pull it out. So hold on, let's find the Chariot card so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. But that when we are in that opposition or that awareness of the duality and we are not in congruity with it, what happens is we are at a stalemate. And, like talk about the United States, just look at where we are as a country right now. We are in such a state of opposition with and like we're not finding common ground. We are not honoring each other for the fact that we are all unique and different. And even just being able to just acknowledge like we're all doing the very best we can. So the Chariot card, this is the Chariot card from my tarot deck, the Healing Tarot. And you can see the masks. She's got these horses that are kind of on either side, and they're sort of running in opposite direction. And the idea of this is just that as long as we have opposing perspectives, as long as we have dueling interests and desires and conflicting desires, we will find ourselves in a position where we will be stuck. So what I wanted to do was do a little bit of work on tapping today, because that is the modality that I find to be often very effective at getting to the roots of things. Now, most of us are aware of the fact that we've got something within us that is in opposition. And some examples of this that are classic examples of opposition would be like the relationship between success and safety, or the relationship between visibility and safety. Or, for example, science versus spirituality is often a thing that can be where there's a lot of tension for many people. Let me see. The part of us that feels like self-promotion, for example, versus being humble. The part of us that feels like the dance between like rest and productivity. There can be any number of variations of this. And one of the ways that you can sort of really start dialing into your personal dualities and your personal oppositions is actually by looking at your astrological chart and seeing literally what do you have opposing, what planets oppose other planets, or things like your ascendant or your midheaven or your north and south node, but like where are the oppositions within your chart? And then looking at how do these dueling parts of yourself impact your ability to make other choices and move forward. So with all of you guys who are here right now, I'm wondering if, as I'm talking about this, okay. So Vanessa asked, how do you find this out? So I want to recommend that you check out astro.com. It is one of the most thorough websites available for astrology charts. And the beautiful thing about it is that while you can be a paid member, you can also cast a chart on astro.com for free. So the only things that you need in order to cast your chart is basically your birth time, the time that you were born, and the location where you were born. And so when you know your birth date, your birth time, and your location, you can get an accurate chart. And then what you're going to do is that when you're looking at a chart, and I will actually later, I'll post a chart to show you guys as an example of looking at a chart. But what you're going to want to be looking for, hang on, I'm going to draw it for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about, is you're going to be looking for the symbol for opposition. And basically, opposition is a symbol in astrology that is basically two planets with a line between them. Makes complete sense because basically what they are is that an opposition in astrology is going to be where one planet is in one part of the, there's 12 quadrants, or that's not quadrants. Anyway, there's 12 pieces of the pie in an astrology chart. And within them, so obviously if you've got something up in one section, then the opposite section, you've got sort of like if you drew a line between the two, those would be the opposition or the houses that oppose each other. And within that, there are what are called the degrees of each thing. So, like for example, I was looking at a friend's chart earlier today and actually a student of mine. We were looking at this in regards to we were working on this duality stuff together in the EFT mentoring group, and there they had a direct, like a perfect opposition where one planet was, their sun was like, Anyway, it was like they had one thing that was like 13 degrees Gemini and another thing that was 13 degrees, I believe, Aries. Anyway, so it was a direct, exact opposition. And when we start looking within that context of our chart, if we just look at the oppositions, there are a couple different pieces that all contribute to with the way that these things work. There's what is the actual planet, which rules different parts of our life. So for example, the sun rules our personality. There's also the sign, which gives the flavor to the planet, like it sort of like is the filter through which we experience things. And then there's the house placement, which is the area of our life that it impacts the most. And so what becomes really fascinating as we start looking at just the oppositions is thinking about how does this one part of myself affect and inhibit or limit this other part of me. Now, interestingly, today as we were doing this work with a group of us, my students, I have one student who has no oppositions in her chart. She's got she's got like all these trines in her chart. She's got a very, very favorable chart. Now, it doesn't mean that life is always easy for her, but she does have a chart where she doesn't have that duality. And I've worked with her for a number of years now, and one of the things that I've noticed is that where a lot of things that are common for almost all of us, where we all raise our hand and go, me too, definitely me, definitely struggling with it, definitely feeling it, she's often like, no, not so much. That's not really my thing. But most of us have oppositions in our chart. Now, the thing is, this is just one way to think about the dueling nature of our parts or the dueling nature of ourselves. Most of us can, if we just take our moment and just sort of breathe into our heart and tune in, we will find what that answer is. So, for the sake of today, because number one, I'm not an astrologer, but I can kind of play one on TV. I've actually been working with astrology since I was like in my since my late teens, early 20s. But I don't consider myself an astrologer because it's not the field. It's not a field that I've ever formally studied. I've just been around it for a long time. So we're gonna focus instead on just the idea of the duality within ourselves. So what I want all of you guys to do right now, if you're in a position or in a place where you can do this, is I just want you to take a moment and close your eyes and just put your hand over your heart. And I just want you to sort of scan yourself and feel for the yeah buts or the tensions within yourself, where it's sort of like maybe there's a deep calling, a deep sense of mission, a deep sense of like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And then at the same time that you're experiencing that, there is another part of you that is experiencing something that is opposing it. So just really feeling into that and listening for like what is the core of opposition within you? Where is there something that is out of congruity with you? Where it's like, sort of, what is it that your what does it say? Is like your face is writing checks that your ass can't cash. Like, like where are you finding yourself like out of sync with yourself, out of sync with your desire? And this can also even be something where it's a family theme. It's like this is an opposition or an energy that has been running in your family line for a while. Like this can be an inherited thing. So like, for example, one of the sort of dualities that I experience in my life and that I inherited, that came from, that I was born into, is the tension between the part of me that is deeply faithful, as you guys probably know by now, and is very, very much in living in a magical world, versus the part of me that was raised by atheists and raised by people who had a tendency to kind of poo-poo any sort of spiritual answers or spiritual perspective or way of looking at the world. And so while I have done a lot of work on owning and claiming my faith and my path, I still every so often come up against that opposition within me that basically says there's, there's no such thing as. Now, I'm incredibly grateful that over the years, I have had more and more experiences that kind of lead me to conclude that there is enough evidence of there being more to heaven and earth than is dreamt of in our philosophy, that I'm more sort of in this state of like, I can't necessarily prove it, but I'm pretty sure there's something there. But when I'm going through a challenging time, or when I'm emotionally, when I'm particularly kind of like already stressed out, this sort of atheism will have a way of sometimes rearing its head. So this is one of the oppositions that I've definitely gotten to deal with, is sort of like basically the part of me that is deeply faithful and trusting in the divine plan versus the part of me that was raised within a very concrete, scientific, rational family that basically would say there's no such thing as an afterlife, there's no such thing as anything else, and kind of like just living in that sort of unfortunate, pessimistic perception of reality where it's kind of like this is all you get. So that's an example of that. So I'd love to see if you guys would like leave some comments below and let me know if you can your own identify your own tensions, your own oppositions. And just like right below, if you can, like even maybe just write yes. And then what I want you to do is also, I want you to think about if you were to imagine percentages within yourself of these tensions, like how much of you is feeling the one side versus how much of you is feeling the other side. Now, interestingly, percentages don't necessarily add up. So, like for example, I might have 70% faith, but instead of it being 30% atheism, I might actually have 50% faith. So, atheism. So it can be where it's like you feel like you've got one may feel like it's bigger, but it doesn't necessarily, the numbers don't necessarily add up. So I would say in my case, actually, if I was going to tap on or work with sort of this big bugaboo, which is like the faith versus atheism, for me, I would say that faith is like, it's really like 85%, maybe even 90%. Like I've got a lot of faith. But then I would say that I've got about 45% of the atheism still in my system because it's like this really, really old inherited family pattern that definitely, and for me, the thing is that it's like breaking free from it entirely is about breaking out of tribal loyalty and breaking the rules. So there's all of that fun stuff. So as you guys are feeling into it, if you want to just like write your percentages, like your ratios of your percentages into the chat, I would love to see what you guys have got. And what we're going to do is we're going to tap with the numbers instead of necessarily tap with the words. And that way, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this, but we're going to work on this from a nice broad distance. So it's kind of like we're going to be taking a distant perspective and we're going to just kind of work with taking it down, because today, being the 2-day, we have the opportunity to work on and look at the duality of all of these things. And as I was mentioning, working with the Empathic Mastery system, right now, what we're working with right now, this whole conversation is about the recognize. And the next step that we want to be taking is working with the release, like letting this shift and go. And then from there, we can start thinking in terms of protection, which has to do with how do we want to redefine things? What are the things that no longer serve us, that we want to eliminate from our lives? What are the new rules that we want to set up and we want to establish? Because protect is works in two ways. Protect works in terms of reinforcing our filters and shields and actually putting up an energetic bubble around us. But it's also about what policies, procedures, and systems do we set up? What boundaries do we have in place that actually protect us on a real pragmatic level? So what we're going to be working with today is with the recognize and the release. Then tomorrow, what we're going to be working with is the stepping into possibility and really working with the idea of protect and connect. And then from that comes the 5th step of Empathic Mastery, which is act. Because once we've got that, we are aligned with our divine purpose and we are in relation to our own higher self, and we are in the core of that divine connection, then from that connection comes access to possibility and access to action that we can then take and move out into the world. So with you guys are feeling into your numbers and everything, what we're going to do is we're going to just use the words of, like, in my case, like I'd say 87% to 45%. So I'm going to use those numbers, but what I want you to do is I want to invite you to use your own numbers. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell your mind and your subconscious that we are using these numbers to represent the qualities of these, or of this sort of this duality that we are holding. And we're going to use a balance statement, which is going to be, we could use sort of the I love myself anyway, but I'm thinking that I'd like to work with the balance statement. I'm open to the possibility that I can find something that works even better for me. Okay, so, and it's just awesome seeing all of you guys adding your yes, healing, seeing all of your comments and what you are noticing for yourselves. So we're going to start by tapping on the side of the hand, and we're going to do what's called the setup statement, where we are going to just acknowledge what is. And if you've never tapped with me before, then welcome. And I just really want to invite you to just experiment and tap along. If I say words and they don't work for you, change the words to work for you. Also, by tapping along with me, you agree to take 100% responsibility for your own process. Don't go places that you don't belong. If I say something and it doesn't work, then change the words to work for you. And also, just to be very clear, doing a tap along with a Facebook Live is not the same as doing a full EFT session. And if you are noticing that stuff is coming up, I really want to invite you to just really slow down, take a deep breath, just keep on tapping, maybe stop using words, and just keep on tapping and breathing and letting yourself just feel yourself and feel into your body. So before we actually start tapping, I want to just take a moment for us to just calibrate ourselves and to this work. So I want you to put both hands over your heart. And sorry, there. Okay, that's actually better. So putting both hands over your heart, just closing your eyes and just bowing into your heart. We're just going to start by taking in a deep breath and releasing any tension or worry that you've been carrying around for the day. Breathing in gentleness and peace, or whatever it is that you need. And breathing out all the distractions, all of the stuff, any hecticness, anything, just letting it go as you exhale. And breathing in one more breath of that calmness and peace. And bringing in yourself into yourself, just breathing into the present moment. And as you exhale, just exhaling any last bits of tension or worry. And then we're going to switch hands. So we're going to, where what hand was on your heart, you're going to move that to the top and put the other hand on top of you. And again, we're going to just breathe in and exhale any tension or worry. Breathing in gentleness and ease. And letting go of all the distractions. One more time, breathing in calmness and ease. And breathing out any tension or worry. And now just shaking your hands out. Roll your shoulders, sort of letting yourself find your way here. Just really choosing to be present. Awesome. And now let's just take a moment. And so, like I said, you can just repeat after me. We're going to start with a setup statement. So even though there's about 87% of me that feels one way, and there's about 45% of me that feels another, I'm just acknowledging it, taking time to tap on it, and open to the possibility that this can shift and that I can find something that works better for me. Now we're going to switch. I like to switch hands. That way I keep track of it and I don't do the setup statement a million times. Even though there's about 87% of me that feels one way. For me, it's my faith. There's maybe 45% of me that feels another, that's still hooked into my family story. I'm just acknowledging it. I'm just tapping on it. And I am open to the possibility that this can shift. And that I can find something that works even better for me. So even though maybe 87% of me is feeling one way, and about 45% of me feels another, I'm just acknowledging it, tapping on it, and open to the possibility that I can find something that works even better for me. Tapping on the top of the head now. The 87, or whatever your number is, the 87% of me that feels one way. Now your number, the 45% of me that feels the other. The 85% of me that feels one way. The 45% of me that feels the other. The 85% of me that feels one way. The 45% of me that feels the other. The 85% of me that feels one way. The 45% of me that feels the other. The 85% of me that feels one way, and the 45% of me that feels the other. Okay, let's just take a deep breath. I'm just going to put my fingers into the gamut point and give the gamut point a hug here. As I showed you guys the other day, let's just take a deep breath. And as you tune in, see if those numbers have shifted a little bit, where you had a particular set of numbers, just tuning in and seeing if there is a shift. I'm actually noticing that where it had been about 87% of faith, now it feels like it's actually a little bit higher. It's like about a 90%. But the atheism still feels like, whereas it was 45%, now it feels like maybe it's a 40%. So if you guys are noticing what your shifts are, you can just write those into, write them on a piece of paper or write them into, into the chat or both. And I'm actually realizing that I didn't light our candle. I've been really liking to light candles during the work or for the work so that it's like the flame can burn off the extra stuff. So I'm just going to take a moment as I wait for you guys to write down your answers. I light this flame that where there has been darkness, there may be light. That where there has been despair, there may be hope. That where there has been struggle, there may be ease. That where there has been loneliness, there may be connection. That where there has been atheism, there may be faith. That where there has been sickness, there may be health. And where there has been lack, there may be plenty. So I'm just going to put this candle up above me and just let it hang out so that it can just burn off that extra energy as we work on this stuff. Awesome. I'm so glad you lit one, Mary Fran. That's wonderful. So even though there is still a part of me that feels let's try this. Even though there's a part of me that is in opposition to another part of me, I'm just tapping on it. And I am open to the possibility that instead of either or, it could be a both and. And I'm open to the possibility that I can find something that works even better for me. So even though I'm still dealing with these parts of myself that are in opposition, that are incongruous, I'm just acknowledging it, just taking this time to tap on it, open to the possibility that instead of either or, it can be both and that I can find something that works even better for me. So even though I am aware that there are parts of me that are still in opposition, that are incongruous with each other, I'm just acknowledging it. And I'm open to the possibility that instead of either or, it can be both and, that there is plenty of space within me for all parts of myself. And that it's okay to have a part of me that is in fear and a part of me that is in faith. That it is okay for there to be a part of me that is confident and a part of me that is insecure. That it's okay for there to be a part of me that is whole and thriving, and a part of me that is wounded and still feeling the old stuff. And so I'm just acknowledging it all, the order and the chaos, and open to the possibility that this really can shift. We're just going to move up to the top of the head. The part of me that opposes the other part of me. Let's just call it these opposing parts. These opposing parts. These opposing parts. These opposing parts. Thinking that somehow they are connected. That one opposes and cancels out the other. What if they just are? What if there is a part of me that is 90%, or whatever your percentage is? What if there's a part of me that's just 90% faith? While there's another part of me that's 40% fear and doubt. The part of me that has, think of your positive quality, that has faith, that has confidence, that has order, that is healing, that is resilient, that is successful. The part of me that is fearful, the part of me that is doubting, the part of me that questions, the part of me that's a skeptic, the part of me that's in chaos, the part of me that's insecure, the part of me that is still feeling wounded. The opposition between these parts, the tension between these parts. Just acknowledging these two parts of myself, these multiple parts of myself. The part of me that is that has 90%, or whatever your number is. The part of me that feels the other way, that is in opposition. This opposition. Let's take a deep breath. Now, I'm wondering if you guys are starting to experience this. I'm starting to notice that it sort of is feeling like instead of these things having to be like the idea that in order for me to have faith, the atheism has to completely disappear, or that, and I also started to notice that it's not actually atheism, it's actually doubt and fear. But that in order to have faith, it's sort of like, instead of it being kind of where it started, which was like, this stuff has to go away. I can only have the good thing. I can't have the bad thing. Now it's more like, oh, well, there's still a part of me that feels this way, but there's another part of me that feels this way. And maybe it's okay that both things can exist. So let me know what you guys are noticing. And if I were to tune in, it feels like, in terms of, yeah, what I'm hearing in my head is like about 93% faith and about like 37% fear and doubt. Lots of deep breaths. Awesome, Dana. So glad. Yes, feeling a shift. And it's okay that both can exist. Totally. So even though, as I've been tapping on this, I realize that there are different parts of me. And maybe they really can exist at the same time. That there can be a part of me that feels doubt and fear, while there is also a part of me that trusts the divine flow of the universe. And maybe it's okay. Maybe it's just the nature of being human that I feel these different kinds of feelings. And I'm open to the possibility that they can exist as both and, that they can exist separately, that they can simply be, and they don't have to be in balance with each other, in opposition to each other, in contrast to each other. That it is okay to feel both ways. So even though, as I've been tapping on it, I realize that there are different parts of me, and that maybe it's okay for me to feel this 93% of trust and faith and hope and possibility, and still have a part of me that feels doubt, that part of me that feels fear, and that can be okay. And so I am just tapping on it, honoring all parts of me, and open to the possibility that they can exist simultaneously, that there is enough room for all of me, for my faith and my fear. And I can love myself through this. So even though, as I've been tapping on it, I'm just realizing that there are all these different parts of me. And maybe it's okay. That maybe it's really all right to move from either or to both and. And that it's really okay if there's still a part of me that has doubt and fear. That's just the nature of being human. And maybe instead of trying to make it wrong, or trying to shift it, or make it go away, I can really love that part of me that worries, that is scared, that feels unworthy, that doubts, that has fear. Maybe I can love myself through this and honor all parts of me. The part of me that feels the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, the questions, and the part of me that feels the faith, the confidence, the joy, the radiance. letting all parts of me simply be, honoring all the parts of me, honoring the parts of me that worry, that fear, that doubt, and honoring the parts of me that has faith, that can feel joy, that can really celebrate and be grateful. Honoring all these parts. The part of me that doubts, and the part of me that trusts. The part of me that is insecure, and the part of me that is confident. The part of me that is joyful, and the part of me that despairs. The part of me that is struggling, and the part of me that is playing. The part of me that has faith, and the part of me that has doubt and fear. Let's just take a deep breath and just noticing, how is that feeling now? And I'm hearing in my head that at this point in time, the faith is, my faith is dialed up to about a 97%, but the fear, the fear and the doubt is like maybe like about a 21, 23% for me right now. But it feels like they're not, it also doesn't feel like they're in direct opposition. So if you're thinking, going back to talking about astrological charts, it's kind of like, instead of it being these two planets that are just in direct, like, opposition to each other, now it kind of feels more like they're just kind of in relation to each other, but they're not stopping each other. Like they can both exist simultaneously. They can exist on the plate without, like, it's sort of like, you know, chicken doesn't cancel out potatoes. You know, you can still have, like, you can have chicken on the plate, you can have potatoes on the plate, and they don't cancel out each other out. So I'm actually thinking that maybe one of the next, that perhaps the belief that one thing can cancel out or has to cancel out the other would be the next piece of the work for us right now. So let me know if that's making sense to you guys. Give me some hearts and some thumbs up if it feels like, yeah, it's this belief that the one thing is canceling out the other thing. Wonderful. So even though there's been this part of me that has believed that that the one thing has to cancel out the other thing, I am completely open to the possibility that all parts of me can exist simultaneously. All parts of me can be congruous. And I can love and honor and accept all of my parts. So even though there is this part of me that was taught a long time ago that one part cancels out the other, I'm open to the possibility that this can shift, that this whole idea can just collapse, and that all parts of me can exist simultaneously, that all parts of me can be congruous. Much love to you, Lucretia. And I am okay that I can love and accept and honor all parts of myself. The confident parts, the hopeful parts, the loving parts, the successful parts, the faithful parts, and the scared parts, the wounded parts, the doubting parts. That there is room and space for all parts of me, and I'm okay. And I love and accept myself exactly as I am. So even though I'm just aware that there's this old rule that one part has to cancel out the other. And I can see how illogical this is, how absurd it is. That just like if I were to have one thing, if I were to have like rice on my plate, the beans don't cancel it out. If I was to have chicken on my plate, the potatoes don't cancel it out, but they can exist simultaneously. And maybe it's really okay that I can have really strong confidence, really strong faith, really strong delight and joy, but also I can have some doubt, I can have some fear, and maybe I can really love all these parts of me. Maybe it can be a both and. Maybe I can honor myself for exactly where I'm at. And I can love and accept myself. I can honor myself and really recognize that I am okay. The part of me that believes that one part cancels out another. The part of me that believed that one part cancels out another. The part of me that was taught that one part cancels out another. The part of me that thought I have to eliminate the one thing so the other can grow. The part of me that can recognize that it can be both and. The part of me that can honor all parts of myself. The part of me that is willing to create space for all these different parts of myself. The part of me that is willing and ready to accept myself and all of my parts, honoring all of my different parts, honoring all my different parts, loving and accepting myself exactly as I am, loving and accepting the part of me that is confident and strong, honoring and accepting the part of me that still feels fear and doubt, honoring the both and within me, that there is room enough for all parts of myself, room enough for all of me, room enough for it all. Let's take a deep breath. So I can really feel like I would say my faith is at about a 97, and the fear feels like it's down to maybe a 16%. It's there, and I've got some reasons for it, but it's kind of like they don't have to cancel each other out. And the thing is that the faith can exist as the antidote. It's sort of like the faith can exist and hold space for the fear, as opposed to the old thing, which was this lesson or this teaching of as long as there's any fear, the faith can't exist. So it's more like, oh, the faith is big enough to hold that space for even that doubt and that fear. So how are you guys doing? And does anybody have any questions? It feels to me like this feels like we did the work we needed to do today. I know I feel like it. Let me know if anybody is still feeling just a little bit of, unreconciled or, sort of unswept. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually just, if there's anything that's that's left over, what we're going to do is we're just going to contain it. And I always like offering it up to Divine Source. So, this is about handing it over to your higher power in whatever form your higher power takes. And, if you don't necessarily have a higher power, it could be the universe, it could be love, it could be, just possibility for relaxing. Dana, I am so glad that you are feeling calm and okay. That is the absolute beauty of tapping, is that it allows us to really, really calm down our amygdala, the fight or flight mechanism in our brain. And one of the things that this activation period has done, these last number of years that we've been going through with all of the astrological shifts, is that it's been really, really stimulating a lot of stress. And the thing is, any of us who've been through stress or been through trauma, it's like once you've been through it, it's a lot easier for it to get triggered and reactivated than if you've never been through it before. But the beauty of tapping is that it reboots our fight or flight mechanism, and it allows basically our vagus nerve and all of our our stress response systems to settle back down and really allow ourselves to reboot. For some of us, this is actually a rebooting that we've never even experienced in this life. Like, it wasn't until I tapped on my mother's stress response when I was in the second like it was like either end of the second trimester, beginning of the third trimester, during my mother's, like when my mother was pregnant with me, that I experienced the first like adrenaline spike. Like, I did not come into this world calm. I came in like running on adrenaline. And it wasn't until I did tapping a number of years ago now, where we actually tapped out that intensity, that I felt calm in my body, like really grounded and calm for the first time in my entire life. Yeah. Yes, and Eve, when there is just so much, even if you start like, thinking about, like, the beauty of EFT is kind of like working with a cluttered room. If you start just working on the one thing, and you just tap gently on that one thing, over time, just like if you start taking one trash bag and putting one thing into it and the next thing and the next thing, it gets easier and easier, and it does have a cumulative effect. So even if it feels like you couldn't find the thing, the fact that you tapped along and you just kind of did that, there is a part of you that absolutely knows exactly what we're talking about. And Sharon, traumatic birth, there is a whole other thing that actually the first healing modality I trained in was rebirthing or transformational breath work. And the premises and the principles behind breath work, but especially the rebirthing aspect of breath work, is that our first experience coming into the world is like our first imprintation of what it is to be alive and human is our birth experience. And when we have challenging births, like my birth was really interesting and really challenging. My mom nearly died giving birth to me because I had a bifurcated placenta. Or bifurcated umbilical cord with two placentas. And so when my mom gave birth to me, she nearly hemorrhaged to death. And so that was something that I really got to do a lot of work on, which had to do with, like, one of the messages that came from that was that I was too much and that I was too intense, and that, my intensity was dangerous to other people. And I had to work through that in order to really be able to do the work that I do in the world. So the beauty is traumatic birth is something that can be tapped on and can be worked on. So far, like I said, I think the other day when I was, the only thing you can't do with tapping is set a bone. It's like tapping, it's like if somebody breaks a bone, you need to go to the doctor and get the bone set. But pretty much anything else you can use tapping to address and help to shift. It's not going to replace a meal, but it will certainly help you with, the hungry horrors. So there's a number of different ways to work with this. So what I would love to do is one last round of tapping where we just like acknowledge that we've brought some stuff up, and then like just turn it all over to our higher power in whatever form our higher power takes. So even though, or actually, let's not use even though. So here I am. I've been tapping, and I'm coming to a place where all the parts are just all the parts. And whatever is left, even if I don't consciously know what it is, there is a part of me that absolutely knows what I am tapping on. And I am letting that part inform the rest of me now. And for right now, I'm just offering it up to my higher power, to Divine Source, and letting Divine Source take care of it. So here I am. I've done some tapping. I'm noticing some shifts. And even if I don't consciously know exactly what I was tapping on, there is a part of me that does. And I let that part of me inform the rest of me now. And so for now, I'm just offering up any last bits of stuff to my higher power, turning it over to the divine, and letting my higher power take care of all of it. So here I am, having tapped from either or to both and, letting it be okay that I have multiple parts of myself. And even if I'm not completely conscious of what I was tapping on, there's a part of me that absolutely knows exactly what I was doing. And I am letting that part of me inform the rest of me now. And so for right now, I'm just going to take this time to offer up any last bits of this to my higher power, turning it over and letting them take care of it. And for now, just loving myself, accepting myself, and embracing all my different parts. Turning all of the last bits of stuff over to my higher power. Any places where there's still duality and contrast, any places where there is any opposition, all of it, I'm just turning it over to my higher power, giving it up to Divine Source, and letting Divine Source take care of it. Inviting Divine Source into my life even more. Open to the possibility that this can be easier than I expect. Open to the possibility that I can find something that really works even better for me. Turning it all over, offering it all up, and letting my higher power take care of it. Let's take a deep breath. So how are you guys doing? Can I get some hearts, some thumbs up from you, letting me know if you guys are doing okay? Great. Great, great, great. So today we have done sort of part one of the work, and tomorrow I'm going to come back at 5:22 or close to 5:22, depending on what Lilu decides to do outside. But I'm going to be coming back around 5:22 tomorrow, and we're going to be working on divine alignment and possibility, and really feeling into as we step through the portal and really allow ourselves to be in alignment. So we're going to be working with that integration of physical form and Divine Source, and instead of seeing them as opposites, really recognizing that we are one in the same, that it is all one, and moving into that sense of possibility. So if you found this to be useful and helpful, please come back and join me tomorrow. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. I will also just mention to you, if you found this to be really exciting and interesting and you're like, oh my God, what is this amazing thing called tapping EFT? Just to let you know that I am going to be doing the next EFT training is going to be starting on March 26th. And it is a professional level EFT training, level 1 and 2, that is for both people who want to learn how to use it for themselves, as well as for people who want to take this and use it professionally. So it is good for people who just want to use it for themselves and with friends and family, but it is also the beginning if somebody wants to become an EFT practitioner. And you can learn more about it, and you can find out more about joining me by heading over to EFTinstruction.com and learn about that. And what I will say is, if you know me, if we've spoken to each other and you know you would like to do the training, then you can fill out the form. Just fill out the form there, and there will be a link to actually the shopping cart, the registration page that you can just go fill out. But if you don't know me, if we have not had a conversation, because this is a very, very limited group, and because this work is really deep, I want to know who everybody is who's joining the circle. So what you would do is you will, when you fill out the form, you will get an access to my calendar. You need to just go and schedule a time for us to have a conversation so that we can get a feel for each other and see, and just talk about what it means to be doing this training. So jump on over to EFTinstruction.com if you are interested in learning more about EFT and really pretty much everything in the kitchen sink. Meanwhile, I hope you have an absolutely glorious evening, and I will look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow at 5:22 when we will be focusing on the walking through the 2222222 portal and really embracing and welcoming divine possibility. So, you guys, thank you so much for being here. It was so wonderful to have you all here. I can really feel you all, and it is just such a pleasure. I'm so grateful that you are here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, there will be a replay. This will be, you people can go back. If you have any friends or family who you're like, oh my God, this person should totally check this out, please invite them to join the Facebook group. And please, please, please turn them on to this particular recording and invite them to come join us tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a rockin' day. It's going to be amazing. And it just feels to me like we've been waiting for tomorrow. A lot of us have been waiting for it. We've been feeling it. We've been sensing it. We've been anticipating it. And tomorrow is one of the days we've been waiting for. So I can't wait to share it with you guys. And until tomorrow, I'm sending you so much love. So, oh, and by the way, for any of you guys who are on Clubhouse, very shortly at 7 o'clock, so 20 minutes from now, me and Nikki and Sharon, who was on here tonight, we are going to be over in the Feeling Good Club for the Voice Your Intention Circle. And that, if you've never experienced it, is really spectacular. It's a place where you can really put in your intentions. You can express your heart's desire. You get, and then we all go silent and we beam energy at your intention. It's amazing. It's like 15, 20 seconds, but it feels like it feels like so much more. And then at least one of us will usually will offer sort of psychic insights. And usually when I'm there, because I'm one of the moderators, Spirit has a way of talking through me a lot. So if you are looking for another thing to do, come join us on Clubhouse. You will find the link on the main wall of this Facebook group. Okay, I could go on forever because I love all of you and I'm so grateful to be here and I'm so grateful that you are here. And happy Duality Day in the 222 portal. I'm sending you love and I will talk to you guys very soon. Okay, peace.